Let's talk about this. So guys, I'm going to be talking about specifically, Gear 6, like all of the things that we know so far about this title, Gears of War 6, which is what I wanted to be titled first and foremost. Obviously, the speculation and the rumblings are that it's going to be called, the official title of Gears of War 6 is going to be Gear 6. But that being said, let's talk about Gear 6, shall we? And about everything that we know so far about this title. So, guys, I'm going to be pulling some thoughts and an article that is coming to us from Rami Tabari of Laptop Mag. Here's everything that we know about Gear 6 at this point in time. So, Gears 6 is not officially confirmed yet, but Gears 5 was one of the most successful games for Xbox, so there's bound to be a sequel. However, there isn't a lot of information out there about Gears 6, so things like gameplay, plot, and modes are unknown. And the first thing, before I even, continue moving forward here with this article, is I think it's important that, we hear Gears 5 was one of the most successful games for Xbox. So it just makes sense that Gear 6 has already been confirmed. I mean, now Rod Ferguson, we've talked about this a lot, guys, but Rod Ferguson, the studio head at the Coalition at the time, had mentioned that Gear 6, Gear 7, as well as the Gears of War movie, which we're going to be talking about here on this episode of the Gears Cast, were all confirmed by him. Now, this is before he left, obviously. He left the Coalition to go to Activision Blizzard to work on the new Diablo title. But it only makes sense. I mean, Gears 5 was a very successful title. I look at it from the perspective that Gears 5 was successful for Xbox, but it wasn't a smash success in terms of like what the community thought of it. Even though I loved Gears 5 for what it was, I still love Gears 5 to this day. It was not as well received by fans and such. And I'm not going to say that it was, any one particular thing. Not that it was Gears 5 instead of Gears of War 5 or, that it was kind of a brighter type of Gears of War title, wasn't as gritty and dark as some of, its predecessors or, some of the games that came before it. But it was a smash hit for Xbox and for Xbox Game Pass. It was really like, if I recall, it was one of like the first party exclusives that came out on Xbox Game Pass, I believe. And it did very well in terms of that. So Gears 5 left us with one cliffhanger, and fans are anticipating a sequel that will wrap up the second trilogy with an epic finale. While we don't know many specifics, we have a few ideas about where the story is going. The biggest question is, which ending is the Coalition going to stick with? So obviously, guys, that they're talking about an epic finale or an epic ending to this current trilogy, and it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of people and a lot of speculation that Gears 6 is going to be the last Gears of War title ever made, and that is an interesting concept. I definitely hope it's not the last one ever made. However, I look at a title like Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite comes out, and I'm sure they're planning on making other future entries in the Halo universe. But that being said, I don't think that they're planning on making another Halo title for a long time. And maybe Halo Infinite was actually meant to be, kind of its own thing for the foreseeable future. Like, it wasn't going to, like, maybe they thought to themselves, let's make this Halo the final Halo, and we support it for the long term with DLC and updates, and we support it for the long term. I'm wondering if something similar here may happen with Gear 6, even though Gear 7 was confirmed by Rod Ferguson. It would be really interesting. So that being said, guys, let's talk about the release date. So this is the huge one that people are asking: when is Gear 6 going to be hitting shelves for us to play, or when is it going to, go live on Xbox Game Pass, so on and so forth. So obviously, surprise, we have no clue when Gear 6 is going to launch, but we do have some insight on the timeline thanks to the previous titles. There was a 3-year wait between Gears of War 4 and Gears 5, so logic says Gear 6 should release sometime in 2022. However, the developers say something different. On May 10th, 2021, the Coalition wrote in a blog post that it would be switching over to Unreal Engine 5, and shifting to a new engine is a big undertaking, so we want to be clear that we will not be announcing any new projects or titles for some time. That likely means we won't see Gear 6 until 2023 to 2025, depending how long it takes to build things from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. And considering how long that'll take, it'll likely only be available for Xbox Series X, S, and PC, leaving out last-gen consoles. So Interestingly enough, I think this is something that we definitely, want to talk about because I've said that the timeline in my mind was, and I'm going to stick with it, guys, being 2024 or 2025 for Gears 6. And the reason being is because so much rumors and speculation around the Gears of War collection is out there. And so I think that the Gears of War collection, if it exists, if it's something that's being worked on behind the scenes, I believe that is the title that's going to come out in 2023. I thought it was going to come out this year here in 2022. Obviously, that's not the case. If it's coming out at all, I believe it's going to come out in 2023. That's going to bridge the gap between Gears 5 to Gears 6. It's going to be kind of that bridge title. And then we'll get Gears 5 in 2024 or 2025. I would love to see Gears 6 come out in 2023, but I definitely want the Coalition to take their time, do this thing right, make sure that it's going to be something that is sustainable, but something that the community and, the pro players, all of those things, everyone universally loves the Gears 6. And so if that means Coalition taking a lot of time, I'm totally down for that without question. That being said, in a supposed leak via cache files in NVIDIA GeForce Now, Gears of War 6 was found as a listing of over 18,000. Other unreleased titles in this list were Final Fantasy IX Remake, Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, and Half-Life 2 Remastered. It's probably best to take this with a bit of skepticism, which I 100% agree. In terms of on the Microsoft website, a recent job listing reveals that the Coalition are aiming to hire a motion capture technician to work with the Gears franchise. And so, obviously, we've talked about this, guys. The Coalition are getting, obviously going through the, obviously the steps now with motion capture. Obviously, they're not going to be doing motion capture for the Gears of War collection because Gears of War collection is going to be more of a remaster than anything else. So you're not going to need motion capture for that. So they're definitely ramping up for the, the future Gears of War, that being Gears 6 or whatever the next Gears of War title is called. I'm hoping it's Gears of War 6 or, Gears of War Forever or whatever you want to call it, right? But that being said, motion capture would only make sense for the next continuation or a new title altogether. As in terms of the story, guys, this is an interesting one. We all know where the story is heading after that super traumatic ending. No matter which decision is canon to the overarching story, Kate Diaz and Marcus Phoenix are going to be out for blood. The finale will likely entail a battle between Kate Diaz and her mother, Reyna Diaz, aka Queen of the Swarm. And this is interesting. Obviously, the thing that I would like to see happen, even though we know kind of where the story's headed, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the Coalition to create some wow moments and some moments that we're not expecting whatsoever. And that would be something like Kate Diaz goes after, Reyna, her mother, and takes her down. But in the process of that happening, she actually becomes the Swarm Queen. And then it's like this massive plot twist. And we're actually, the past couple of games have been playing as the future of the Locust Horde, the next Queen of the Swarm. And then maybe in Gears 7, you have Marcus Phoenix, JD, they all go after to take down Kate Diaz as well as the rest of the Locust Horde once and for all. I feel that, Kate Diaz is a very powerful character in terms of, I love her character as it is, but I think that there's a lot of opportunity because I believed her to be like a really powerful character in a number of ways. I think that her becoming the Swarm Queen could really up the stakes and make it, something during, Gears 7 that she's like the biggest threat that the world has ever seen at this point in time. And so it could be something really interesting for Gears 7. I don't know what direction they're planning on going in. However, it sounds like they're probably just going to go in the direction of Kate Diaz. We play as her to go take down the Swarm Queen, that being her mother, Reyna. And then that's maybe the end of it, right? But I feel like there's just so much more to be told in the Gears of War universe as a whole, whether we're talking comic books, novels, movies, the games, of course. I just think there's so much more to be said than it just kind of ending in that way. That's just my opinion. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about that in the comment section down below. But How is the Coalition going to handle that important choice at the end of Gears 5? Will the writing team definitively decide a canon ending, or will Gears 6 feature two completely different instances of storytelling? This has been done before in games like Wolfenstein and even in bigger games like The Witcher 3. So this is an interesting point. We've talked about this on the YouTube channel, guys. By the way, you guys can check out all of my Gears of War content here on the channel. And I will say this. Gears 5's ending, even though I loved like the decisions that you have to make, some massive decisions you have to make, whether killing off JD or Del, I didn't like us having to choose between Del and JD, simply because, now the question really comes up as what's canon. JD, I did not like the direction that the Coalition took JD in. I've been very vocal about this in Gears 5. Gears of War 4, we play as JD, and then it moves right over to Kate Diaz. I feel like it did JD somewhat of a disservice. They kind of made JD seem more of like a douchebag than anything in Gears 5, and so I just didn't like where they took JD's character. That being said, the canon here, or in terms of what will be canon in Gears 6, I'm wondering if they're going to, whatever your decision was in Gears 5, that's going to translate over to Gears 6. And so if you have JD live, right, the story will take you in one direction in Gear 6. If you chose to save Del, the story in Gear 6 will go a different direction. It'll be interesting to see what they plan on doing. I think that, it really sounded like the Coalition was going to double down on this idea of creating more options and choices that you make in Gear 6. Like they wanted to tease it in Gears 5, and then in Gear 6 they're going to really go full blown into that. The same thing goes with teasing the semi-open world in Gears 5. I feel like the direction they're going in is a full open world in Gear 6. So with the choices that you make, obviously we've made choices throughout every single Gears of War title at this point. Obviously, it's usually which path do you want to go down? And that's usually what it is. But now they're upping the stakes of it, and I think they're going to just continue doubling down on that in Gears 6. We'll have to kind of wait and see without question. Now, considering Kate Diaz's origins, there's also a chance that the ever-evolving Swarm could survive past Gears 6, depending on the direction the writers decide to go. Either way, Kate Diaz will have to face her past and come to terms with her connection to Locust and the Swarm. 100% agree. As far as the gameplay goes, guys, we don't know anything about what Gears 6 gameplay will be like, but hopefully it changes. Don't get me wrong, I love Gears 5, but the gameplay wasn't as impressive as it could have been. It felt like a traditional Gears game, and not in a good way. With the transition to Unreal Engine 5, I hope the Coalition goes radical with Gears 6 and spices up the gameplay by nailing down the movement and make it smoother. Getting more creative with the cover-based mechanics and stealth mechanics would also drive the series forward in a big way. Look, I loved Gears 5, so I disagree with this notion that, there has to be massive changes. I think, yes, there has to, going from Gears 5 to Gears 6, there has to be change, right? You have to evolve, you have to adapt the franchise. So the movement system, making it smoother, yeah, sure. I mean, you can always make it better. And obviously, Unreal Engine 5, I think, is going to create a lot of opportunity for things to become smoother, for sure. Like I said, though, I loved Gears 5. And, I thought that the gameplay was fine for what it was. Could it have been better? Absolutely. There's always things that, development teams and such can improve on. And I do hope that they improve in Gears 6. They continue to evolve and adapt. One of the things, it definitely didn't feel as much like other Gears of War titles. I think there was definitely mechanics that they had changed, right? And we were talked about, like, Gears 5 maybe wasn't quite as gritty as maybe Gears of War 3, Gears of War 2, or the original Gears title, or even Gears of War 4. It wasn't quite as gritty. I want Gears 6 to go a little bit grittier, a little bit darker, and I think that's what, Gears of War is all about. Now, that being said, I also feel that for the esports scene in particular, I think it's important that they deal with that very carefully to make it so that more and more people can watch Gears esports, like, a younger audience and such. Gears of War is going to be a mature rating, regardless of how you look at it, guys, but certain ways you could maybe you know, create some, make it a little bit more, not so much kid friendly, but making it so that it's not as graphic in terms of the esports scene and such. But like I said, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about that. I do agree, though, that the Coalition needs to continue to update things, and I think that they definitely will. That's why they're taking their time doing this thing right. The studio should look to games like Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain for inspiration. MGS 5 is a super smooth cover-based shooter disguised as a stealth game. The game can't just look next-gen, but it needs to feel like it's next-gen. As far as the main campaign goes, I hope that Gears 6 utilizes the same open-world RPG-esque mechanics that Gears 5 did. It was one of the best radical changes that the series has ever seen, and the Coalition needs to keep those changes to bring Gears franchise back to the top. I mean, I don't think that you have to make an open world game in order to make it rise back to the top. You just have to make a really solid entry, make sure the launch is really good. Like if we could take Gears 6, have the launch that we had with Halo Infinite, like Halo Infinite had an awesome launch. If we could get that with Gears 6, we would already be off to the races. Obviously, I think from a content perspective, we have to be creating content, guys. We have to be streaming. We have to be doing all those things to help build this thing. Yes, open world is definitely going to help, for sure. I would love to see stuff like, you know, Halo Infinite. One of the things that people want so badly is Forge mode, like where they can create their own maps and such. I think this would be awesome for Gears of War. Gears of War having a Forge mode or something like it, where there's a map editor where we can create our own maps, really open up the imagination, and maybe, you know, I think that would be something that would be awesome. Like, it's like, Coalition, let the community help you guys in terms of making some of these things, so, you know, taking kind of a load off your plate. The same thing goes with, you know, weapon skins and such. I think getting the community involved in things like that could be something absolutely awesome. And then the same thing goes with the esports teams, allowing the esports teams to create their own skins and such. And I don't know exactly if they allow them to or not, but doing stuff like that could be something absolutely massive for Gears 6. Getting the community more and more involved, making it a little bit easier, like I said, lessening the load on the Coalition, I think could be absolutely huge. Now, as far as the outlook goes, guys, you know, I love the Gears of War franchise, and while I started to lose interest when Gears of War 4 launched, Gears 5 resparked my joy in the series. Gears 5 was such a step forward for the franchise that I am giddy thinking about what Gears 6 will be like. It's going to be a few years since the Coalition is moving forward, or is officially moving to a new engine, but the wait will be worth it when we see one of the biggest titles launch on the upgraded Unreal Engine 5. We really want to see some major changes to the gameplay formula, tweaks that could keep this cover-based shooter feeling fresh in the 2020s. So look, guys, I definitely think that you have to continue having, you know, changes. And I think that there was a number of things actually, you know, that made Gears of War 4 better than Gears 5 in terms of tone, in terms of like, you know, grittiness, things of that nature. And so I think, you know, even though I loved Gears 5, not everyone loved Gears 5, right? And I think that all video games are subjective. What one person thinks is great, another person may not think is that great. So, you know, it's interesting to say the least, and I'm definitely interested to see what happens here in the future. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts about Gears of War 6, Gears 6. You know, with all the things that we know, at least so far, about this title, even though we know very little, what are your guys' thoughts about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. And for more Gears 6 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.